Hello and welcome to the number one championship podcast, the second tier. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by last week's game to this week's game. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
We are once again doing another live stream straight off the back of Middlesbrough v Sunderland. And this was more like it, wasn't it? This was a bit more of an exciting game than the one that we did last week. Yes, we're reacting straight off the back of that game. So we're getting our fresh reaction out to the people straight after that one. And it was a cracker as well. We'll talk about that very shortly. But before we get on to tonight's game, Justin, we're once again giving away 2 pairs of tickets to anyone who comments on this game. All you have to do is leave a comment in the live stream chat and we'll pick 2 winners to be announced at the end of the show. It really is as easy as that. And then if you are the winner of this competition, then you get to choose which game you want to see as well. It's up to you which game you go and watch. So make sure you get your comments in and get involved in the conversation, and you could be in with a chance of winning 2 free pairs of tickets to a game of your choice in the championship this season. But let's talk about the game. Just in a late own goal by Ryan Giles saw Sunderland get a dramatic 3-2 win against Middlesbrough in the Tees-Wear derby. And yeah, as I was alluding to at the top of the show, a lot more entertaining than the game last week. We can say that much for sure. What a game this was, Justin.
It was a terrific game. It really was. It was exciting. I mean, the atmosphere for starters at the Riverside was fantastic. So you got to praise the Boro fans for really drumming it up. Had a bit of a European feel to it, which was great on a Monday night.
I haven't been watching Middlesbrough week in, week out this season, but I noticed they've got some sort of ultras at Middlesbrough now. This was a new thing, which I wasn't aware of, but I didn't mind it, Justin.
No, I loved it. I think it added to it. And again, because it's on a Monday night, you can expect the atmosphere to feel a bit flat sometimes, especially on the night games, either on a Friday, even Saturday lunchtimes. But, fair play to the Borough fans. I know they lost, so it's no praise or consolation for them. But, they get 10 out of 10 for, making a good atmosphere. But it really was a good game. 2 teams playing a high line and getting punished for it. It was carnage. I loved it. This is what the championship's about. None of that 0-0 nonsense we had last week. This was a good football match with technical quality on display, passing brilliance, good finishing, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, it really was a great one for the neutral, which is a good thing, by the way, because anyone who is listening abroad or watching this abroad, then you won't be aware of this, but this game was only the second championship game this season. It must be the second one in a while, which was shown on free-to-air TV, because it was on ITV4 as well, which I nearly forgot about. But that means that hopefully this was a good one for anyone who was just casually tuning in, because it really, really was a great one for the neutral, Justin. It's Sunderland's first league win on Teesside in 20 years. It's the first time in 63 years that they've done a league double over Middlesbrough, which just goes to show how big a result this could be for Sunderland, especially, by the way, after they had 2 so-so performances, one where they grinded out a win against Derby, and then, of course, that draw against Plymouth at the Stadium of Light last time out. So getting this result is a huge one for the Black Cats, isn't it, Justin?
Yeah, it was a really important reaction, a really good reaction as well. And especially, the first 30 minutes, Sunderland weren't really in the game. Boro controlled it, created a lot of openings. We were such a threat on the counter as well. And, the way the goal came about from Sunderland's perspective, they'll be really disappointed with. It wasn't a foul on Patrick Roberts, by the way. I think I'll get that in early. Definitely was not a foul. It was a legitimate goal from Boro. But they reacted from that very well. I know the goal came in sort of fortuitous circumstances with the George Edmondson deflection, but they started, I think that gave them the confidence and they started to express themselves a little bit. Enzo Lefebvre was getting into the game. Wilson Isidore was making some really good runs off the defender's shoulder, which we know he's good at, and he showed that in this game time after time. But it was a very good reaction. It was a very good performance, and they showed a lot of character. And again, I don't think we can keep throwing Sunderland have got an inexperienced squad, the naive card anymore. They really showed up to it tonight against a team who have recruited really well in January as well. Got some strong, a very strong squad, really good players, and they came about it.
Yeah, they really, really did. And Don Goodman on the commentary was making or the Sky commentary, if you weren't watching it on a Sky, was making the point that Sunderland are kind of this year's Ipswich in the way that many neutrals probably expecting them to drop off at some point, but that's not been the case so far, has it? And maybe people were starting to think with the last couple of games that maybe this was their time to start dropping off. But this goes to show that they are still very much in that race for the automatic promotion spots, and it leaves them just 3 points behind Sheffield United. They're level on points with Burnley. So, yeah, still very much in that race. And it's got to be said, you talked about how they are still an inexperienced side, but what they've done in January is really getting some star quality. And we saw that in the form of Enzo Lefebvre. What a game for him. Man of the match, without a doubt. Got an assist for Sunderland's second. Made the winner as well. Undoubtedly his best game in a Sunderland shirt so far. Want it, Justin?
Yeah, what a game to do it as well. The derby like game if you want to throw it at him, and he really showed up. It was a big game in which you needed your big players to come up trumps, and he did that. I'm not going to be too critical of Sunderland. I thought Patrick Roberts was just quite disappointing. In comparison, when you got Enzo Lefebvre, I know he's the player that he is, but you got him on that left hand side. I mean, Luke Ayling, good grief, he's going to have nightmares tonight, because that was a performance that will live long in his memory, because Enzo Lefebvre was just terrifying. The left hand side of Sirkin overlapping as well. It's a really nice balance that they've got. But just his passes, some of his touches were great. There was a point in the second half where he did a lovely touch, and he couldn't quite get the opening to Sirkin, and he passed it back to, I think it was to Bellingham, who put a ball into the box. And there are just moments like that to remind you how good he is, but also the moments that matter as well, with his passing and his choice of passing. It's by far, ahead of a lot of players in this division. We can praise Hackney for his quality of passes, but Enzo Lefebvre is on another planet. A freak of nature, if you like.
Yeah. Sometimes you just see a player, and wow, the top players have great technical ability. I think the thing that really sets top players apart from your average championship players, the fact that they just seem to be one step ahead of everything that's going on in the game. Enzo Lefebvre showed that on so many occasions in this one. I mean, the touch for what turned out to be the winning goal was just superb. And then the chances that he was threading through on multiple occasions was just outstanding. And look, last time out against Plymouth, I was making the point that he doesn't seem to have had as much of an impact as he possibly could have done, because he's been playing on the left wing quite a lot recently. I would like to see him go into the middle at some point, because when you've got a player like him who can just pull off the magnificent on so many occasions, then you want him on the ball as much as possible, don't you, Justin? So I would like to see him go into his normal, in his natural central position at some point, but whether that happens or not, I don't know. We've got a comment here from Reece Houston, who called it an Enzo Lefebvre absolute masterclass, which I think is absolutely spot on. Justin, what were you going to say?
Yeah, the point I'll make is the first 30 minutes they were relying heavily on Patrick Roberts, and he was almost running into it's how Boro's goal came about, was him losing it, but he was running into blind pass or blind alley sometimes. And they weren't using the width enough, and obviously changing up the flank and getting the ball into Lefebvre. That changed in the second half, and we saw the game open up from Sunderland's perspective. So I'm not saying it was tactical, but you could clearly see the difference in quality, and how much better Sunderland were once they opened the game up and used both flanks equally, if you like. That's the point I wanted to make, and I think we saw that with Patrick Roberts' performance, and obviously Lefebvre's in the second.
Another player who stood out for me was Wilson Isidore, put Sunderland ahead with a very coolly taken goal. One thing I'll say is, it annoys me nowadays how you don't get players dribbling past the goalkeeper. It's something which seems to have been a bit of a dying art in football, but it was good to see old Wilson do that so calmly. And it's got to be said as well, Justin, he's just signed permanently for £5 million. Reportedly £5 million. There's a bit of debate about what the actual figure is. But this was a great example of just how good he can be, because, of course, he did get the goal, but was a constant thorn in that Middlesbrough defence all night, wasn't he? And now that Sunderland have got him permanently, they've got themselves one hell of a player on a permanent deal, haven't they?
I know we can talk about his finishing, but it's his runs off the ball. I love his runs off the ball. I spoke about it a few weeks ago when they played Burnley. I know he missed 2 penalties, but there was that moment where Lefebvre played that ball into him. He's off the defender's left shoulder and he's through on goal. There was a moment in the first half in this game where he peeled off. He was given offside. He peeled off in the first half, as I say. He was given offside. I don't think he was offside. I think he was onside. I think he timed his run almost perfectly. It was very tight. And he peeled off onto the left flank. And again, pass from Patrick Roberts found him, but it was given offside. It's just his choice of runs, his decision and when he's running, and obviously his goal came from, as soon as Sunderland get the ball, he's off. He's off. He's picking his moments to run. He's picking his positionings to run, and I think when you've got a forward who can do that, it's a very, very positive thing. And I said it a few weeks ago. That's another asset for Sunderland because he's got a player who can find him on these passes, and it's worked out in this game, and it's worked out massively for him.
Yeah, it always helps when you've got someone who's so intelligent off the ball and making those runs, isn't it? And Wilson Astor has shown on plenty of occasions. He's also had occasions where he hasn't been able to, but he's shown on plenty of occasions that he knows where the back of the net is. I think from a Middlesbrough perspective, Justin, in this game, they put up a good showing, didn't they? I don't think we can be too critical of them, despite them not being in the greatest form recently. I think this is one of their better games in their recent run of form. I thought Hayden Hackney had a magnificent game. Didn't deserve to be on the losing side in this one because the assist for the first goal, is just inch perfect. That was superb. And then scored an absolute beauty as well. As I say, did not deserve to be on the losing side in this game because he had a magnificent performance. Also, apparently been attracting interest from Porto in this window, which was a random one. But that just goes to show how quality a player he is, and he showed that in this game. I thought it's worth highlighting some of Middlesbrough's debutants in this one, Justin. You had Mark Travers in goal, Ryan Giles both making their first starts for Middlesbrough. Well, Ryan Giles making his second debut for Middlesbrough. But the other one is Morgan Whittaker, of course, just moved for £8 million. How do you think he got on in this one?
I wasn't overly impressed. I think there was a couple of moments in the first half where he carried the ball into dangerous areas. But, if we're talking about the Morgan Whittaker we saw last season, very far from what we know he can do. And look, I know he's been in and out of the Plymouth side with injury. I know he's made the move up in January when it can be hard to settle sometimes. But I think if you're moving for £8 million, you're probably expecting an instant reaction or an instant impact. I don't think we got that from Morgan Whittaker. Maybe it wasn't the type of game for him, I don't know. But that being said, I mentioned at the start of the show that both teams were playing high lines. That's to be exploited, and I don't think Boro did that often enough. I know they did that with Bergzorg and Hackney at times, but if you're looking for your wide players to get into the games and really punish opposition, I don't think Whittaker did that. But it's his first start. He's got the rest of the season to go, but £8 million is a lot of money for a player who's going to deliver flat performances.
Yeah, you want him to be having an instant impact, don't you? And I agree with you. He didn't have a great game here. He did have one moment where he nearly won a penalty after a nice little jinking run on the edge of the box, but apart from that, was pretty quiet. Obviously, Ben Doak wasn't available in this game, so you had Whittaker playing on the right-hand side. And it'll be interesting if Doak is available for the next game. I'm not sure what's going on there with his availability. But if you had Ben Doak fit and you've got Delano Bergzorg, who had a great game, I thought, for Middlesbrough, it'll be interesting to see what Carrick would do with the team selection there. But it's going to be a fascinating one. But look, it's not a great result for Middlesbrough by any means, is it, just in losing at home to rivals? And it's another blow for them in terms of the playoff race because they've not been in great form, have they? It's back-to-back losses for them now, Justin. And we've got a question here from Dixie who asks, is Carrick under serious pressure now they're out of the playoffs? And this is something that you've mentioned a few times recently, Justin. Should questions be asked of Michael Carrick if Middlesbrough don't get in the top 6 this season?
Yeah, it's something that I've brought to the surface, and I don't want to because I do like Michael Carrick. I do like his style of football, but the summer transfer window was really good, and then January has had yet more investment. So naturally, I think if playoffs are not to be this season, how far is Michael Carrick taking this side? I think by this point in the season, and again with the quality of signings they made in the summer, I know they've had injuries, but every team has had injuries in the Championship this season. It depends how you react to those injuries. I'd have expected Boro to be batting a lot more comfortably in the top 6 than what they are. They're coming in and out. They're dropping in and out of it. They're way too inconsistent, and that for me is very frustrating given the investment that's gone into this squad. So naturally, for me, I'm glad the question's been raised because I don't have the burden that. But the answer I would give is I think he's going to start to feel the pressure a little bit because what is his second full season now? And if he doesn't deliver a top six finish, I would expect Boro to look elsewhere to find a manager who can get the best out of this squad.
I mean, that's a big statement, saying that he should be facing the sack if they miss out on the playoffs this season. But I think you are right. That question should be asked because this will be the second season in a row that Middlesbrough have missed out on the playoffs. If it were to play out, it is worth saying they are level on points with West Brom in sixth. So it's not, all hope lost right now. But you are absolutely right with the points that you make there, Justin. You look at this Middlesbrough team now, on paper, that is a very, very strong team. And they've got depth now as well. It's not like some of the other teams around them who have, a decent team on paper, but are, paper thin in terms of depth. Middlesbrough have got that in abundance as well. So considering the amount of money that's been pumped into this Middlesbrough team in the last few seasons as well, I think it would be fair to start asking questions of Michael Carrick and whether he is getting the best out of this team, because ultimately Middlesbrough want to make that next step, don't they? They've been knocking on that door for a fair while now, and while Carrick did have, he's not exactly had a bad season by any means. If Middlesbrough do want to make that next step, I think it would be entirely fair to ask those questions. They have made a deadline day signing, actually two deadline day signings for that matter, Justin. One is Aston Villa winger Samuel Illing Jr., on loan. He actually made his debut in this game. He spent the first half of this season at Bologna, but now Middlesbrough have got him in on a Riverside. But the other one who's probably a bit more familiar to you and I is Kelechi Iheanacho. The striker's joined on loan from Sevilla for the remainder of the season. And it seems like it's a like for like replacement after Emmanuel Latte-Lath departed to go to the MLS. So what do you think about Iheanacho, Justin? Is he the answer to Middlesbrough's striker issue?
I think I'll make the point. I don't think they needed him. I think they've got a fluid enough forward line. I mean, you've mentioned that they signed Illing Jr., they've got Ben Doak, they got Bergzorg, they got Whittaker, they got Conway, they got Marcus Forss. There's enough players. I
was going to say, you've only mentioned two strikers there, Justin.
I know I've only mentioned two natural strikers, but I think they've got enough in that forward line to get by. Iheanacho, he's got great top flight pedigree, hasn't he? He spent his entire career in playing in the top flight, both for Sevilla, Leicester, Man City. So that has to be said. But I do sit here and wonder whether it's a good signing. I don't know. He never really looked convincing at Leicester. He failed to nail down a regular starting place. I would say he's got great technical quality. From what I remember of him, he's good at finding goal scoring positions inside the box. I just don't know. It's really hard to pinpoint Iheanacho because he's a player who's, as I say, never really convinced. But maybe a drop down to the Championship might be the right move for him. Again, proof will be in the next few weeks whether he settles quickly and gets on the score sheet. Because if he doesn't, he could go 13 appearances, no goals. I think it could be one of them where he scores 7 or 8 or scores 0. It's a flip of the coin, I think, for Iheanacho.
I would disagree with you on the point about whether Middlesbrough need a striker. I do think they need a striker, but I agree with pretty much everything else you said about Iheanacho. I think he did show moments of class when he was at Leicester last season in the Championship, but he was sort of in and out of the team, did have a few injury problems as well. So, he's certainly been a striker he's been on the downturn for a fair while now, hasn't he? So whether he can re-find some form at Middlesbrough, it remains to be seen. But Middlesbrough, I think, need a striker because if you look at how Marcus Forss did in this game, missed a golden chance in the first half, and I think the score was still 1-0 to Middlesbrough. That could have really turned the game in their favour if you put that away. So they needed to get someone in. We'll see if Iheanacho can be that man. It's been a pretty quiet deadline day for Sunderland, Justin. Their main thing that they've been in the headlines for in the past 24 hours or so, from what I've seen, is their fight to keep hold of young winger Tommy Watson. They've turned down a £13 million offer from Brighton. An interesting one, Justin, because he only just came into the Sunderland team earlier in this season, played a handful of games before he got injured. And here we have Brighton offering 8 figures for him. It's pretty mad. And Sunderland rate him so highly, they've turned that figure down for him. It's crazy.
Yeah, I still think he's very raw and got a lot to prove. And he's still very young, isn't he? So that's a very obvious statement. I mean, they spent a fair bit of money on Erin Cashing from Derby, which surprised me a little bit. Brian are feeling a little bit flush. If I was Sunderland, I probably would have accepted the offer. I think Sunderland fans can criticise me for that, but a player who's not played too many games for the Black Cats so far, I know he's still got a lot of room to grow, but I would probably accept it. I sit on that side where I think he's got an abundance of potential. So 13 million straight up is a good fee. If you can get a 15% sell-on clause in there, it goes up to 20 if he's a success. So yeah, I'd have maybe accepted it and then looked to reinvest that in the summer wherever Sunderland are. But I think if they can keep hold of him, they've got a very talented player between now and the end of the season once he's back fit.
Well, they clearly rate him very highly to be turning down that kind of money for someone who's barely played at this level, haven't they? So that's going to be interesting. We've got a comment here from Patrick Hamilton who asks, how could you turn down that money? It's a fair question to ask. I will actually correct myself. Sunderland have also been linked with a move for Jayden Danns of Liverpool on loan. That's not been confirmed as we sit here right now, but it's been something that's been talked about pretty much all day. So it sounds like it's going to go through unless something happens there. But it'll be interesting to see how he fits into things. And yeah, Sunderland, I assume they'll be happy with their January business. Obviously, getting in Enzo Lefebvre is a pretty good start. Getting Wilson Isidore on a permanent deal is not bad either. But they're looking pretty well stocked all over the park now. They probably would have liked to have got another winger in, hence why Danns is coming in. So I think it seems like they'll be pretty content, Justin.
Yeah, I think keeping players was the big thing for Sunderland. Keeping hold of Bellingham, keeping hold of Patrick Roberts. He's been linked with moves away in previous windows.
Dan Neil.
Dan Neil as well. I know he got heavily linked with Everton this window as well. So, I think but Anthony Patterson's another one who keeps getting linked with the move away as well. So keeping and retaining their squad, I think, has been the big thing. And obviously Tommy Watson's probably the surprise one out of that. He's probably the last person you'd expect to get a big money offer, given that he's not played too many games so far and he's still currently injured. But yeah, I think their window has been a success in that they've got Isidore on a permanent left phase come in. And they managed to keep hold of pretty much their entire squad. And obviously, Chris Mepham's not been recalled. We know loan players get recalled all the time. He's been an outstanding capture for them so far this season. So even keeping him, retaining him for the season, it's been a good window for him.
I think he's been a bit shaky recently. I'll say that much. But by and large, he has been fantastic for Sunderland this season. So yeah, you're absolutely right with that one, Justin. I think just one thing we'll give a mention for on the game finally is Wilson Isidore's antics after the final whistle, where he got the corner flag, stuck a Sunderland shirt on it and started swinging it in front of the travelling kind of Sunderland fans. Well, it's if you ask Sunderland fans, they'll say they don't care about Middlesbrough, but it certainly seems like it every time they beat them. So
it's not a derby.
There you go.
Derby, is it?
It's not a derby until they win, is what they're trying to say. But of course, it's reminiscent of the Zian Fleming incident after the Burnley win against Blackburn at Ewood Park not too long ago. So yeah, it's good to see them replicating that. Justin, I think we've covered the game in enough detail here, but of course we are recording this and live streaming this live on deadline day. At the time of recording, as I speak right now, it's 26 minutes past 10 on this Monday night. We've had plenty of deals go through already, some still going through. I imagine plenty of clubs are a bit nervous as we sit here right now. But I wanted to ask the question, since it is deadline day, is there a deal that's caught your eye in the Championship over the past 24 hours or so?
Yeah, I'm going to go for John Egan to Hull. I really like that signing. I think it was a surprise to see him go to Burnley in the summer on a free anyway. Just because Burnley had about 33 centre-halves at the time, didn't really need another one. But what Hull are getting is a player who, hopefully, if he stays fit, has got brilliant leadership qualities. He's a good organiser, a good leader. He's a cracking defender. He's been a part of 2 teams who have been promoted from the Championship. And they've got him for, I think, 250,000, something ridiculous. A really, really low cost move for them. It was a no-brainer. I know he's at the wrong end of his career, but when you get in some of his qualities in that team, it just makes complete sense. So that really could be definitely the deadline day signing of the day, but also I think one of the signings of the windows as well. If Hull can comfortably stay out of relegation trouble.
Yeah, steady Eddie, isn't he? You can't go wrong with John Egan, really, can you? The one who's caught my eye was Lewis O'Brien to Swansea, because I just love Lewis O'Brien so much. I think he's had such a rough couple of years, hasn't he, with the move to Forest not working out, and then he trying to get that deadline day move last year or a year before, whenever it was, to Blackburn, which fell through when everything looked like it was going through, but there was an administrative error which meant it didn't go through, and then he's had to play in the MLS and just not really had a look in at Forest. So his career's maybe not gone to plan as he thought it might do when he was a star player in that Huddersfield team, which got to the playoff final not too long ago.
He was the best player in the division, wasn't he?
He was the best midfielder in the division, Justin. You're absolutely right. He was absolutely fantastic. So for him to now be at Swansea, hopefully it's a chance for him to get things going again. And of course, with them losing Matt Grimes, I'm not sure he's a like-for-like player, but it's certainly not a bad replacement at all. If they can get that player back, who was so pivotal for that Huddersfield team, then it would be an outstanding move from a Swansea City perspective. So yeah, that one really, really caught my eye. Got to be said, Swansea looks like I've had a pretty disappointing deadline day otherwise, because they were hoping to sign 2 other players on loan, but it sounds like both of them have fallen through. So unless something dramatic happens in the next hour or so, then it'll be interesting to see what Swansea fans think of their deadline day business. But there we go, ladies and gents. This has been a live stream straight off the back of the Teeswear derby. Middlesbrough v Sunderland. Sunderland coming out the 3-2 winners with that dramatic Ryan Giles own goal right at the death. But before we go, it's time to reveal the winners of our ticket giveaway. We've received plenty of comments, and we can now announce our 2 winners. We've got Jack Lee and Doug Bolan. You two have both won a pair of tickets to a championship game of your choice. Congratulations on that. If you can get in touch with us by emailing secondtierpod@gmail.com to claim your prize, and we'll be in touch with the details on that. But we'll be doing another ticket giveaway the next time we do a live stream. We've got another one coming up pretty soon in the championship, so we look forward to seeing you then for that. And we'll be giving away another 2 pair of tickets then. So make sure you subscribe to the Second Tier YouTube channel to get involved with that. But otherwise, if you are listening to this on your usual podcasting platforms, thank you as always for tuning in. And we'll be back again very soon. We'll be back again on Thursday for a roundup of all the games coming up in midweek in the Championship, as well as going over some of the news from the past couple of days as well. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.